Coming up on the Lifestyle.org podcast.
I only talk about 4 core emotions because most of the other words are descriptive of one of those.
Your passion is to find what's the latest and the greatest in the study of the brain.
Because if you don't understand your brain, if you don't know who you are, how can you cognitively become the best that you can be? Hanging on to it is going to increase cortisol and all kinds of, neurotransmitter stuff that's going to wreck your brain down the line. People who live angry lives are not healthy.
I'm here with my favorite brain specialist, Dr. Arlene Taylor, and I want to ask you a question.
How many brain specialists do you know?
I actually know quite a few.
Oh, well, that's a huge compliment. Thank you. I don't know whether you're correct or not, but...
Well, I'm correct in my mind that you are my favorite. And everyone, you need to go to arlenetaylor.org to find out all the amazing things that you're doing. I've known you for decades, and you always surprise me with new stuff.
I surprise myself.
Your passion is to find what's the latest and the greatest in the study of the brain.
Because if you don't understand your brain, if you don't know who you are, how can you cognitively become the best that you can be?
It's absolutely true. So speaking of that, your brain, in our concept, it's that place where thoughts affect us. How do your feelings and thoughts work together? How can you control your feelings with your thoughts, or is that even possible?
It is possible, but most people don't know that.
Yeah.
First of all, there's lots of ways to identify emotions. Mm-hmm. I only talk about 4 core emotions because most of the other words are descriptive of one of those. Mm-hmm. For example, happy, joyful, euphoria, that's joy.
Yeah.
Anger, bitterness, retaliation, irritability, that's all anger. Being afraid is fear, but you can have it's unnatural fear. It's fear in your mind, and there's no physical basis for that.
Yeah.
And that's horrible.
Yeah.
And then there's sadness, regret, sorrow because somebody died. Now, thoughts. Most collectively, I think we're pretty clear that thoughts originate in the subconscious, triggered by what's going on in the outside world, the epigenetics, our bodies, in the immediate environment. And we program the subconscious.
Yeah.
By what we look at, what we eat, what we read, what we watch on television, who we hang out with, the risks we take, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So a thought will pop up into the brain for some reason, and we don't know. We know that what you put into the brain will come out. Mm-hmm. So a thought will pop out. And if a thought is a happy thought, it will usually trigger the feelings of happiness. Mm-hmm. If it is irritated, unhappy, this is not fair thought, somebody's invading my boundaries, then anger will pop up. And anger is a wonderful emotion. We cannot be healthy without it. But if you read scripture, it's so powerful. When anger arises, look at it, take appropriate action, and get rid of it before you go to bed. It's that powerful.
Yeah. Why would you not want to hang on to it?
Because it triggers stress.
Mm-hmm.
It was never designed to be lived. Yeah. It was designed to be episodically to let you know, this isn't right. I've got to do something about this. But hanging on to it is going to increase cortisol and all kinds of, neurotransmitter stuff that's going to wreck your brain down the line. People who live angry lives are not healthy. And then if you watch the news a lot, and I won't be popular with the news anchors, but it's pretty much got to be bad to get on the news.
Yeah.
And if you watch the news and you start being fearful, then you're going to be filled with fearful feelings. And if you wanted something very badly and it didn't happen, or somebody you love got killed, or you backed over your cat on the driveway or whatever, then feelings of sadness are going to arise. Now, here's what we think we know. You can change your feelings as long as you change your thoughts. So if you have a thought that's not real, but for some reason you're afraid of it, nobody's ever going to love me again. I'm not good looking enough to, go on television. You change, your thoughts are saying, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. It's never going to work.
Yeah.
If you change your thought, Arlene, you are good enough to do whatever the Lord wants you to do. Your feelings will change.
Is there a typical prescription that you give to people who are saying, I'm trying to, but my emotions, how do you, in these times of intense emotion, how do you change the thought? And what happens when you do what you prescribe to change the emotions, maybe release the endorphins that would be kind of the payoff? What's your typical prescription?
You have to know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
People often don't know what they're thinking. They're into the action because the action always follows thoughts and feelings, and now you act on it.
Yeah.
They rush to the action.
Mm-hmm.
And unless it's an unsafe condition and you have to immediately take some action, I have to stop and say, Arlene, you're feeling really irritable.
Mm-hmm.
What is that about? What has just happened? What happened in the past that was like that, triggered anger in me? Once you can do that, then you can say, okay, I've got it. That was then, this is now. I have many more tools to use now. So, Arlene, you are feeling pleased that you've connected these dots and you don't have to keep feeling that way.
I love that. Anyone that's in the public eye, like you or myself, we have to deal with these emotions, especially when people say things. People
are you going to go into the kind of things that we get told?
Oh my word! People, especially nowadays with social media and everything, everyone's an expert, everyone's a journalist, and so their opinion, they have no qualms about attacking.
And no background for which to do the attack.
And so what I've had to do is look at it, and I just ask the question, is it true? And then I have an adage that I share with everyone who will listen is, I ask, is it true? And then my response is, only defend what's real. And so my action in most of the cases is what many people would call inaction, but it is internally very much an action. I put it away. I don't fight those fights. I don't fight with people who don't know what they're talking about. If it's not true, then I can't defend it. I only defend what's real.
Well, and it's a waste of time and energy
because we have too many other things to do
Yes.
to help people, to be fighting a group that doesn't want help. They're already experts.
I feel very sorry for them because it's often initially not a choice.
Yeah.
They grew up in a family where nothing was ever okay. Mm-hmm. Nothing you did was okay. And so they really do feel inadequate and deficient, and God never makes junk.
Yeah. Is there something going on in their mind where it is a payoff to them to criticize, to to do that? What's going on in their brain?
Usually the basic feeling is they feel very inadequate. So if I can tell somebody else, that was a stupid thing to do, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They momentarily feel, okay, they're better than them.
Yeah.
But the problem is you have to continually be critical, whether it's verbal or in action or in thought. You have to continually be putting other people down in order to feel okay about yourself. And that is so unhealthy.
I worked on a college campus for about 6 years, and there was the honors level teachers. I was not one of those professors, but one of them really irritated me. And this is years ago. And she got up for her acceptance speech, for Teacher of the Year. And in her speech, she says, I take great pleasure when all of these young minds come into my class and I completely tear down all of their beliefs. And she didn't go on from there. That was, she takes great delight in tearing down what they thought they believed. But I knew from experience, because students would come into my office, that we used to joke we needed a deli ticket machine there, now serving number 147, because students would come in just crushed and I don't even know what to believe anymore. And I would be there trying to help them rebuild, their belief system and everything. And so at a staff meeting before the next school year, she repeats the thing, and I'm at a table, and me, I'm Mr. Calm. I'll let anybody say whatever they want, whatever. And I was just, because of my irritation of all the students coming in, saying how they just didn't even know what to believe anymore. She repeats the statement. I slapped the table and I said, "Where's the genius in that? Any monkey can tear apart a machine. Build me a better machine. Then I'll think you're a genius." And I felt bad initially for saying it, but it was like this, I felt like someone just needed to tell this person.
You could have felt very proud for taking the risk.
I felt bad afterwards, but at the same time, I was like, someone needs to tell this person, tearing other people down, although it gives you this release, this payoff in your own mind for feeling so smart, that, tearing other people down, it's, even though it may have a payoff for them, they don't understand the damage that it does to all the people around. And so since that time, I've tried to find a better tactful way to deal with it. But I've always wondered, what is it in the mind that, even especially now in our day, that has caused kind of this explosion of negativity and criticism of people who are trying to help other people?
I think there's a huge difference, Roy, between smart and wise.
Yeah.
A huge difference. And we don't talk about wisdom.
Yeah.
We talk about IQ. Oh, and we could talk about IQ and emotional intelligence for hours, because the successful managers in multiple studies have an average IQ, 100, 95, 105.
Yeah.
But they have wonderful EQ skills.
Yeah.
And often the people with the highest IQs have the lowest emotional intelligence skills.
How does that affect them as leadership roles and what they accomplish?
They're not going to be successful long term.
So if you had a higher EQ, lower IQ, you're going to be a better manager than the other way around.
That's correct. And, there's been lots of work done about that with big organizations and committees and so on. And the people who do have IQ, you see it even in nursing, medicine, many of the medical things. The people who got the straight A's are not necessarily the best clinicians or the best bedside manner, because that's a lot of EQ.
Yeah. I found that to be so true. I work with a lot of people as a success coach, and one of the things that people initially tell me is, I'm not smart enough.
Exactly.
And I'm like, oh, you're in the perfect place to be successful, because the moment you say I'm not smart enough, it actually triggers parts of your brain to actually be better than someone who thinks they're smart enough.
Let's learn more but I like to talk about wisdom, because wisdom takes into account not only what you think you know, and you only know what you know, and I only have scratched the surface about the brain, but you only know what you know. Everybody has something to give, and everybody has something to learn.
Yeah.
And if you could get that, you're going to work hard to avoid being arrogant about what you do know.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard you mention that before you realize you've had a thought, it's like 6 to 10 seconds after you've actually initiated that thought. Talk to me about that, and how does it affect our ability to control our feelings?
There have been so many arguments about that, because we talk about free will.
Yeah.
And then here comes the research that based on who you are and what your subconscious knows about you and what's going on, you know, your brain tries to jump to conclusion of what you're going to do and say because it'll help you get there faster.
Yeah.
And it does that because of this backlog of what it knows about you. And so it will give you a thought. And yes, in some of the studies, it was somewhere between 6 and 10 seconds. And then you have a conscious thought. And you don't realize you've already been thinking it for all those seconds.
Really?
You have this thought and you go, oh, well, I'll do that. They don't stop to think that just because you got the thought does not mean that that's the thought that would be advantageous to continue to hold on to or take action upon.
So knowing that, how does that help us knowing that this thought has already been processing 6 to 10 seconds before? How does that help us to be able to control either our emotions or make better choices?
Well, it starts with it starts with what you put in your brain, actually.
Yeah.
Because I have an acquaintance who is a wonderful professional, but she loves those gory movies with, you know, the dead walking around and people getting their heads cut off and so on. And then she has nightmares, you know, and she wonders why she's got stomach problems. And, you know, I gently say, what are you watching on TV? But I like that. I get excited wondering who's going to get knocked off next. And I go, you might want to start getting your excitement somewhere else.
Because it might be you that's next, yeah.
If you can identify your thought and not take action on it unless it's bona fide danger, and give yourself just a few seconds to say, well, okay, what's the reason I'm thinking that thought? What just happened, or what am I worried about? You really can change that, but it takes focused attention.